Hidden Horrors of the USSR. Dark Secrets History Books Don't Tell You. Soviet Union. A colossal superpower born from revolution and war. A nation that shaped the 20th century with its iron fist and unwavering ideology. But beneath the towering monuments and grand narratives lies a dark and terrifying world, one that history books often gloss over or leave untold. Today, we plunge into the hidden horrors of the USSR, exploring the atrocities, mysteries, and frightening legends that lurk in the shadows of Soviet history. The Great Terror, Stalin's reign of nightmares and of the darkest chapters in Soviet history, is the Great Terror of the late 1930s. Under Joseph Stalin's ruthless leadership, millions faced arrest, exile, and execution. Stalin's secret police, led by Nikolai Yezhov, were given quotas to meet target numbers of people to be eliminated. These quotas were chillingly impersonal. Names were numbers, lives counted as statistics. Innocent men, women, and even children were swept away accused of being enemies of the state, saboteurs, spies, or traitors without concrete evidence. As the saying went, when you clear a forest, chips will fly. In this grotesque metaphor, families were torn apart, entire populations uprooted to labor camps, prisons, or worse. The atmosphere was one of paranoia. Neighbors and even family members turned informants to protect themselves. Fear permeated every level of society, and the line between truth and rumor blurred into indistinguishable dread. The chilling tales of forced confessions, sham trials, and brutal executions haunted the very fabric of the USSR. Historians estimate that during these purges, over 1 million people were executed, and millions more were imprisoned in infamous gulags, harsh labor camps, where survival was a daily battle against starvation, cold, and cruelty. The Gulag, a prison of death. Speaking of gulags, these were not mere prisons, but sprawling complexes spreading across some of the most unforgiving terrains on Earth: Siberia, the Arctic, and the Far East. Millions were sent to these camps, many for political reasons, others for minor infractions, or simply for falling victim to the ruthless machinery of Soviet justice. Survival depended on relentless labor under inhuman conditions. There are countless accounts from survivors describing starvation rations, grueling work in mines or logging camps, and the ever-present threat of violence from guards. Death rates were staggering, with people freezing in brutal winters or succumbing to exhaustion. The psychological horror was as intense as the physical. Prisoners lived constantly under the shadow of death, uncertain if they would see another day. The camps bred a culture of distrust, despair, and hopelessness, a nightmare that stretched for decades. The Soviet Union's cover-up and denial of these horrors ensured that for many years, the true scale of suffering remained hidden from the world and even many Soviet citizens. Mystical legends and urban horror in the US, but Soviet horror extends beyond the political and into the realm of the unknown. Despite the state's official atheism, mysticism and dark folklore thrived in secret, often blending with the terrifying experiences under Stalin's regime. Tales of haunted forests, cursed villages, and ghostly apparitions permeated the collective psyche. Stories circulated of mysterious disappearances, strange sounds in the night, and inexplicable phenomena in desolate Soviet regions. One famous example is the Dyatlov Pass incident of 1959, where 9 hikers died under bizarre and unexplained circumstances, sparking decades of speculation, theories, and eerie legends around frozen Soviet wilderness. Moreover, Soviet analog horror, a genre framed in found footage style, revealing obscure and terrifying truths, has gained a cult following for the way it draws from Soviet-era anxiety and paranoia, reimagining them as supernatural or psychological horrors. These stories tap into the deep fears of a society where surveillance, suspicion, and repression were everyday realities. World War E, the hidden anguished Second World War, was a period of immense suffering for the USSR. The siege of Leningrad alone exposed civilians to starvation and death on an unimaginable scale. Yet, behind the heroic narratives lies a darker truth about desperation, betrayal, and sacrifice. Soviet soldiers and citizens endured not only the horrors of battle, but also internal terror from their own governments, strict control and suspicion. The psychological scars of war were compounded by post-war purges, repression, and silence about what truly happened on the front lines. The psychological horror of war and political oppression intertwine in the stories of veterans who witnessed unspeakable events, many who suffered from trauma that was never publicly acknowledged. Why these horrors were forgotten? The Soviet Union was a master of controlling information and crafting official narratives. Horrifying realities were often buried, rewritten, or denied outright. The Iron Curtain not only kept the outside world at bay, but also shielded citizens from uncomfortable truths. Soviet propaganda glorified the state and its leaders, erasing or altering facts that might paint a less heroic picture. This control extended to education, media, and art, creating a sanitized version of history that ignored the blood and shadows. It wasn't until decades later, with Glasnost and the fall of the USSR, that the horrifying scale of these events truly emerged in public view. Yet even now, many secrets remain hidden or only partially understood. Conclusion: the hidden horrors of USSR are a stark reminder that beneath grand ideologies and towering monuments can lie unspeakable suffering and fear. Through political terror, brutal camps, war, and eerie mysteries, millions experienced a nightmare masked by state control and silence. These stories are not just history, they are echoes of pain, resilience, and the human will to survive against all odds. To understand the Soviet Union fully, we must confront both its grand achievements and its darkest shadows. By shedding light on these dark secrets, we honor those who lived through unimaginable horrors and remind ourselves why the truth, no matter how grim, must never be forgotten.